Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Wire podcast. I am your host, Tim Keller. Along with me this week is Mr. Matt Disher. We do have Mr. Tim Koester getting ready to join us here shortly, but we wanted to start the podcast on time, and we'll have Tim join us here shortly. But Matt, how have you been? How you doing, sir?
Good. It's been a strange events in the world
Mm, mm,
here in America. But you know what? My life has not changed.
yeah.
It's the same old stuff. I'm busy in work. I enjoy what I do, and I keep on keeping on, as they say.
Yeah, we record Wednesday mornings, and everyone knows that Wednesday afternoon, last week after we recorded, that there was the protest in Washington, D.C., that then led to people breaching and entering the Capitol building. Um, it personally, for me, it's disheartening. It's disgusting. It upsets me. I've not been a fan of anything that happened over this past summer, with the destruction of property, the injuring or death of anyone involved in any of those things, and I'm not a fan of what happened last Wednesday either. Um, Anyone and everyone is more than allowed to have a protest and to voice their opinions, and you know, at the time I probably didn't think so, but by God, that's really what I was doing, um, by joining the armed forces. And that's what so many other people do, is they fight and give up their freedoms so others can have these sort of freedoms. It's once they get taken too far into a place they shouldn't go. And that's just my opinion. And there's storming a Capitol building, just isn't the way it should have happened. Personally,
Right. Yeah, I
so
agree. I don't think anybody. Let's say I don't think most people haven't condemned this. I think that
mm,
most people are in agreement. This was the wrong way to do anything. If you had a grievance, if you had disagreements, as we say in the military, we're sworn to protect an oath, um, and in many cases that oath it does extend beyond our active duty time. Um, but it also doesn't extend into doing silly things that might seem like they're pushing against the establishment that
mm,
has been fairly set up. There's been a lot of information, a lot of misinformation. I am I am increasingly, and this is not just in recent years, but in my old age, I'm increasingly nonpartisan. I'm
mm,
increasingly more objective,
mm,
and I find myself not taking a side. In fact, I find myself very disillusioned by the two-party system. And I'd say that what I notice about these events, or the events of the whole year, let's call it that. I think that polarization is an all-time high in the United States. People are more and more separated from each other. People are more and more disconnected, and I think that the political sphere is more and more polling to extremist polls. And I think that there has to be some way that we come back from this, instead of the whataboutisms, and instead of the finger pointing and the partisanship. I do believe that we need to start looking at each other like fellow men and women, and start looking at each other like fellow Americans, and bring back those American values, which are not for us to get upset and take to the streets and destroy property. Um, that's just not the way we operate as a country. And not that I keep seeing on the media, hey, the rest of the world is watching. Not that I, honestly, when I sit down at home and drink my coffee, I don't care if the rest of the world's watching. But I do care that this is the place we live. This is the place I've worn the uniform to defend this country. I grew up here. My parents grew up here and served this country. My grandparents grew up here and served this country. And it is truly the land of opportunity. It is truly a place that you can come from nothing and have everything. Um, and I think that we need to remember that. We need to stick to those guns, and remember that the freedoms that we have and the opportunities that we have in this country is where it was what got us here. And we're not always going to agree, but it doesn't mean that we need to resort to violence and destruction.
absolutely. I completely agree. And I would say that had things been just slightly different, if they decided they didn't want individuals to get into that building, no matter what, it would have been a really bad day. And for whatever reason, I think while I didn't like to see people storming the Capitol building, I think that somebody somewhere made a call that allowed the little bit of damage to be done. And then they took control and pushed everything back
Well,
without
there's yeah,
really hurting too many people.
right, right, and there's been some speculation. I've heard a lot of conversations around why did the response from the police and the National Guard look different this time from what it looked like over the summer. And there are a couple of articles. Noticeably, Army Times posted an article about the timeline of how the National Guard gets deployed. And in short, I don't have the article in front of me, but in short, it was that the requests were put in. The requests have to have special approval to deploy the National Guard in the capital region from the Pentagon. Those requests were put in late. The requests were granted on time, and everything happened on time. But the big difference between the two events was that I don't think that they anticipated. This was not a crowd of people moving toward the Capitol, burning things down. It was the events over the summertime took a little bit of time to manifest and become a larger event before people ended up at the Capitol. And I don't know if anybody anticipated any violence or destruction in this event, but I think it happened a little bit differently. But the Army Times, I'll try to pull up that link before we cut here. It explains how the dispatch of the National Guard happened that day and why the two incidents look different. Because I do think that that's a point of contention for a lot of people. They're wondering why the two sides of the political spectrum look different. Again, it's a whataboutism. It's a why this party got this and that party got that, which is just adding to that whole division thing. But I'll see if I can't find any news on that.
Well, speaking of news, I know some of the big news this week has been some of the big time lottery jackpots between the Powerball and the Mega Millions. And we, the guest we're getting ready to have on, Tim, is a financial advisor, former Army infantryman. He hasn't been 100% clear on what exactly his job was. So Matt and I plan on really pushing him because he says target acquisition specialist. That could be a sniper. I don't know. We need to find these things out. But being the gentleman now holds the role of a financial advisor, we wanted to discuss, because on military.com, the article's here, what happens when a military member hits the jackpot. So Sergeant First Class Misty Bowman, a 3rd Combat Aviation Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division soldier, won $2.5 million on a lottery recently. So while serving in the active duty military, won a big time lottery winnings. Now, if anybody was active duty, spent some time in the barracks away from home as a young man or woman, let's be honest, some of the best parties you ever went to were barracks parties. So imagine a young, 19, 20, 23, 4-year-old wins a nice chunk of a Powerball winnings, the kind of barracks party you could have then.
Just a cool 2.5 million. Imagine just being a junior enlisted person in the military and picking that up. Now, Tim and I were talking about this before we started, but I was thinking to myself, those days where you were supposed to be on the grinder to meet the trucks to pick you up for some sort of training op, some sort of field op. We're going to 29 Palms or something like that. We're going to go there for a month and a half. We're supposed to be on the grinder at 09 because that's when the trucks are picking us up. If anybody who's been in the military, that the military, one person says be there at 9. Motor T says be there at 9. First sergeant says be there at 8. Lieutenant says be there at 7. So eventually you're showing up on the grinder with all your gear at 03. And if you stayed up, at any decent hour the night before, you've gotten 4 hours of sleep now, and you have all your gear packed and you're laying out there. And I have pictures of it. I used to joke around that the Marines were able to sleep literally anywhere that they showed up because that's what we would do. We'd just be waiting all the time. We'd be waiting. Hurry up and wait, as you've probably heard.
Yes.
Hurry up and wait. So imagine if somebody's like, all right, 04 on the grinder, we're going to meet the trucks, and you're sitting on $2.5 million. Are you really going to, come on. are you really going to be there? Because I'm not going to be there.
I'm gonna have that limo with the hot tub in the back take me up to 29 Palms. So I'm just gonna ride in the hot tub the whole way up.
I'm gonna need my helicopter to come down and pick me up. And I'll ride my own helicopter at 29 Palms. I'm gonna stay in my RV on 29 Palms.
My RV. I know, and the article here on military.com, you can find it there, talks about Misty Bowman actually continued out her career, finished her career in the Army before retiring. It mentions about some other armed forces members also winning, like a Coast Guard member picked up $1 million in a Powerball drawing. Soldier from Fort Bragg won $2 million that same year. I would imagine that most people in the military, young people in the military, if they won a large jackpot, probably wouldn't make the smartest decisions. So that's where having a good accountant or someone in the family that can probably guide you and say, hey, why don't we invest some of this money? Why don't we buy a property or properties, and let's hopefully turn this money into a money-making opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you'd hope. And there are classes in the military. There are classes that allow you to learn how to use your money. And of course, if you got friends who know what to do with your money, like TK, then I'll say, hey, TK, what do I do with my money? But we got TK on the screen now.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Tim. By the way, you have a fantastic name.
Oh, I know, right? Good initials.
great initials too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great initials.
I'm sorry about this, fellas. I'm a little bit nervous. Matt told me to do some studying, so I had to look up this Ron Burgundy guy.
You got the good stats.
I put something together pretty quick.
You were ready to sit on that media desk and read the teleprompter.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you. Yeah.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
I'm Ron Burgundy. It's a great look. But Tim, we were just discussing an article on military.com. A sergeant first class in the Army won a $2.5 million jackpot from the Georgia State Lottery while being active duty. And, anyone that's been in the barracks area and has been to a barracks party knows that if someone of a certain age won this kind of money, the shenanigans that might ensue. And it's probably not the smartest decision to make. There's probably better ways to invest and use that money. But yeah. So
I mean, I would have made really smart decisions, and I would have done it all right. And of course, investments.
Matt, if while the age we were at while we were serving together, you would have had the most obnoxious drum set.
Yes,
in your barracks room.
Here's what I would have done. Well, remember in Okinawa how the rooms were connected with a bathroom? I would have gone to the Marine Corps and I would have said, yes, I'd like to rent out the room next to me as well, and I'll pay for that room. So I would have rented extra real estate and an extra 300 square feet of property, and that room would have consisted fully of a drum set or drum sets, and perhaps a wet bar. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. It'd have been soundproofed with a drum set, a couple guitars, some amps. Yeah,
right.
You started cutting demos in there.
Well, it would be for those days when we had I don't know if you remember the typhoons. We were talking about this last time, weren't we? The typhoons rolled through and we lost power for a couple of days, and there was literally nothing to do. Mm-hmm. And if you recall, the walls in the barracks were sweating. That was the really weird thing to me.
How humid it was.
It was so humid. But I remember just being obnoxiously bored because we'd go scuba diving on the weekends and whatever else we'd do. And we had nothing to do. We're just locked up in the barracks for a few days. And if you go outside, you get NJP or court-martialed or something like that, unless it's absolutely necessary. But I'd be bored out of my mind. So imagine if we had 2 or 3 drum sets and, maybe I'd rent extra space with my $2.5 million for a generator out on the stairwell where we could have power run into the barracks in case something happens. Yeah. It'd be the talk of the town.
Yeah. One of you did have who actually had the drum set over there?
Jimmy Purcell.
Okay, I knew one of you had the drum set. I remember watching you all play.
I just talked to Purcell the other day. We had a good conversation. I caught up with him.
Good.
Yeah.
So let's get into our conversation. Tim, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Army veteran. Yeah, Army veteran, correct?
Yep.
So when did you join? Why did you join? All those questions. What brought you to the Army?
So I signed up in 2003. Like a lot of other people we served with after 9/11, I gave me a certain feeling, and I felt compelled to go serve my country. October of '03, went up to MEP, signed up the DEP program until May of 2004. Went down to Fort Benning, Georgia. I went through basic training and went to Fort Polk, Louisiana, served with 10th Mountain Division through women's to Iraq, Afghanistan. And once I got out, went to University of Cincinnati, then Xavier University, and lucky enough to find myself in the field I currently I'm lucky enough to serve my client base.
Awesome. So is the Army anything like the Marine Corps, where you go in, you sign up with a recruiter, he says, well, we'll put you in this class and we'll see what kind of job you end up with? Or did you get to pick your job?
One of the reasons I joined the Army was 100% job selection.
Okay.
So I was, being really naive. I had no idea what it was like to get shot at. So, like a lot of other people, I said, let's go do this, because I thought I knew what I was getting into. I took my ASVAB and I got a 97. My GT score was high enough. He was like, are you sure you want to do this? I was like, yeah. But as far as that's one of the reasons I went in, and that's probably the only reason. The recruiters at the military station on Glenway Avenue were just better salespeople.
So what job did you go with? What did you do while you were in the Army?
I was in the infantry.
Okay.
I was 11 Bravo.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that I don't know Army MOS. Is that just a regular infantryman?
So there's regular infantry, and in 2006, I tried out for Scout Sniper Platoon. So I was actually a sniper during both deployments.
Oh, all right.
We were joking around before you got on the call that one time, Tim, you and I went and talked to some elementary school students. Remember that, downtown Cincinnati a couple years ago? We went to go
absolutely
do that mentorship opportunity. Yeah. And I think one of the kids asked you what you did in the Army, and you said that you were a target acquisition specialist. And I think it was so that they wouldn't ask any more questions about. Because every kid knows what a sniper is.
You got to find a polite enough euphemism.
Right.
Matt was not sure, so I looked up target acquisition specialist, which apparently is a thing for the artillery side. So I wanted to dig a little bit, wanted to push, see if you actually were a sniper or not. That's pretty cool. So you did a couple tours overseas then? Iraq, Afghanistan, where we're at?
Yeah, I was in East Baghdad, more specifically 9 Nisan, right outside of Sadr City. While we were in Baghdad, Afghanistan, we were in Ghazni province, which is 40 miles from the Pakistani border.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your service, sir.
Well, thank you, fellas.
Yeah. So
the best decision I ever made.
So you get out of the service. The recruiter was right. He's like, hey, this really smart guy probably shouldn't be going to be an infantryman, but you get out, and now you get to put those smarts to work.
I'm not about to say I'm smart. I'm just good at taking tests.
Good at test taking. That's how I got through high school, honestly.
It's a skill, though. It is a skill to have. Some people just, they don't want to do the work, or they're not good at doing the work. And then when it comes test time, they can just buckle down and knock them out. So, hey, it's a good thing you're good at test taking. So, you find yourself back in the civilian sector. And what kind of challenges did you face when you first got out?
One of the first things I noticed when I got home was how everyone treated each other, as far as just basic courtesy. I was always a firm believer in, if people just said please and thank you and open doors for each other more, we'd probably live in a better world. There was coming from an environment where you have a lot of like-minded people who, it gives you a sense of security, because if something happens, I have someone else watching my six. Even though I'm locked in, I'm watching out for them. Knowing that I have someone else looking out for me, it was always nice in the service. And when you get out, sometimes it gives you the feeling is if it's you against the world. You come home, it's like, well, sometimes we have these delusions of, I don't want to say grandeur, but maybe we think that we did certain things that we didn't, and trying to reestablish our place in this world, more specifically the civilian world. It can be a challenge.
Mhm.
You know, when I came back, I didn't have my degree. Now I'm extremely fortunate that I was allowed to use my Montgomery GI Bill for patient behavior. So when you get back from the military, it's step one: do you have a degree? No, I don't. Well, I'm not going to talk to you.
Right.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. How can I? You're not going to hire me as a manager? I used to be in charge of a handful of individuals with some serious items, but part of that is possibly bringing your ego back into check. I didn't. As you can tell, I'm still not the most eloquent speaker when it comes to when it comes to grammar and syntax. If you can't use the correct form of to or there, it's difficult to find. It's difficult to find a job. So having to come back and relearn and take an algebra class. I used to be great at math, and I'm sitting here looking at algebra, in my mid-20s. What is this? I haven't seen it in a long time. So having to relearn and it almost was like a strategic refresh. I'm 6 years behind where I should have been, but we can't look at the past and whine about things. We just make ourselves better in the future.
Yeah, Tim, I completely agree with the whole algebra thing. I have a 16-year-old daughter who is, doing the high school math and stuff. And I guess 2 years ago, she had her first algebra class. Hey, I need some help with this. I was always good at math. Here, let me help you out. Oh no, there's letters. Oh God, what do we do here? I can do the numbers math still. I don't. Oh, so I had to kind of relearn with her. Yeah, like this X shouldn't be there. Just get rid of that one. Let's do the rest of this.
Right, yeah.
But
we got new math. There's a new way to do this.
Yeah.
Like what happened? What was wrong? What was wrong with the old way?
Well, you brought up something before, Tim Koester. Sorry, there's two of you. And we should get another Tim on the call.
You can't even say like, "Hey, T."
We should, right?
And that was, you didn't have your degree. I didn't have my degree when I left the military either. And I experienced that. I always joke around that I probably applied to 1,000 jobs, and I didn't get a single call back. And this is back before there was LinkedIn. This was back before there was social networking or Facebook or any of these other places. So when I see people complaining about that today, hey, I applied to this job and didn't get a call, I'm like, well, I mean, how many doors did you really bang on? Because there's a lot of other opportunities to go banging on doors. But back then, I mean, even 6 years ago, let's call it beyond 6 years ago, LinkedIn wasn't really even adopted by a lot of people, particularly in the military. Probably even 4 years ago, the military hadn't largely adopted LinkedIn for the power and purpose that it has now. But the same thing happened to me. I was a combat engineer in the Marines, blowing things up and shooting guns. And I put that on a resume and didn't have a degree, and nobody wanted to talk to me. There was no execution for me. There was no way to plug into anything. And so I came out and was a bartender for a little while. The Jeff Ruby's restaurants here in Cincinnati hired me like day one, which was a great opportunity, good money. But beyond that, when I went to go try to get a job in an office or something like that, it wasn't happening. Nobody wanted me. So it's that's a conversation that we continue to have, and it continues to happen today in employment is, oh, you don't have a degree? Well, I can't bring you on. Well, what about the 5 or 6 or 8, 10, 12 years of military service that prove that I have had more classroom time than your average bachelor's degree candidate? I have more dedication to a program. I've probably suffered through more things than just a rough day at work. What else do I need to prove myself? So just wanted to throw that little piece in there. The same thing happened to me, Tim. And I hear it from just tons of other veterans as well.
May I add something? May I jump in here real quick?
Of course.
So one of the reasons we find ourselves in certain positions or certain environments is because sometimes we're acclimated to be in that situation. It's easy. It was easy for me to shoot, move, and communicate. It's easy for me. Formatting a spreadsheet and this and that, that's difficult. It was really difficult for me. So I believe if veterans took on more of a challenge, like, wait a minute, this is how business is done back in the civilian world. I'm going to learn how to put a spreadsheet together. I'm going to learn how to properly format a resume. I'm going to learn how to do something that I haven't learned to do before. Like, I don't, if you do 120 push-ups in 2 minutes, who cares? Go do that in front of the next hiring manager.
Yeah,
It's not going to close business.
That doesn't work. That doesn't.
I personally recently was having a discussion with.
I tried it. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Look at this. Look at how many push-ups I can do. Look, are you counting these?
Listen, I know nothing about these spreadsheets.
41. Did you count those?
Yeah. I went all the way down. Like, do you even go all the way down?
And then even worse, the hiring manager sitting there going, one.
Come on, nasty. Extend the elbow.
Pulls out the metronome. You're like,
right.
oh.
Yeah. You didn't go all the way down. Start over.
Yeah. I don't like your rhythm.
Right.
I know personally, recently I was having a discussion with a hiring manager. I have college credits. I never actually finished the degree. So I just kind of inquired to a recruiter about a job. Just, hey, I'd like to have a conversation, learn a little bit more about the company in this position. Their immediate shoot back was, hey, we're looking for someone with this degree. Do you have that degree? So, no, I do not have that degree. I said, but my time in the military and my time in a management role over these, X amount of years, I would guarantee you I am more than qualified for this position, and given the opportunity, I'm sure I could succeed. And that got me that next step. And it's not always going to work that way, but don't be down on yourself because you don't necessarily have that degree. We had Jeff Hancher on the podcast, a couple months back, who said, for the longest time, him not having the degree was something that was a hang up for him. And when he'd sit in front of sit in a board meeting and people would start introducing themselves and, hey, I'm a UConn graduate. I graduated with such and such degree. I'm a Syracuse graduate. And then it'd get to him and, I went to such and such high school. It's okay. Just remember to let them know, hey, this is what I did in the military, and I've proven myself here, and I know if you give me this chance, I can go and do this as well. So it's not the end all be all.
Tim, I think that sheds light on. I don't know how Xavier University is one. It was an unbelievable school. The staff and the faculty, how they treated me was. I'll be in debt to that university. For quite a long time. How much did I actually learn at Xavier? Above and beyond, what I already knew, because I believe people have a certain level of aptitude, right? You have aptitude and you can build off of that. A degree is just a data point. It's just, again, I went to class, wrote out a paper. You can get D's the whole time and you're still going to get a degree. The whole hang up on degrees, I believe, is an issue from the corporate sector and why they make it a requirement. But then we can get on the discussion of, wait a minute, you need to have tuition payments continue to roll in, and one begets the other, and then you begin to hamstring the next generation with loads of debt that they can't service. That's going to inhibit their financial success going forward. And I think that's the real issue.
Right, and I'll add some flavor to that, because this is my world. The hiring space is my world, and we talk about diversity and inclusion in the workplace and how it is not as good as it needs to be in corporate America. Just the diverse ranks. One of those conversations is that when you require certain types of degrees, you are then essentially in a roundabout or indirect way requiring a certain pedigree of people in your office, which then excludes a ton of other people. It disallows diversity in the workplace. And so there is a larger conversation happening there as well. One of the things, as we're talking about veterans and military, one of the things that we've seen over the course of the last, 20 years, due to legislation. And, I sat in front of a congressional panel one time and testified as a subject matter expert on post-military hiring with the House Committee on Veterans Affairs. And one of the comments that I made in that testimony was that corporate America is slowly adopting the idea that 4 years plus of military service is equal to a 4-year dedication to a degree program with just as much, if not more, classroom or learning experience time. It's just that in those classrooms in the military, you're not learning subjects. If you think about virtually any college degree, half of your subject matter are the electives. They're the items that, I mean, they're not really pertinent to your degree program.
Mhm.
They are items that, you know, you could pick up by watching Discovery Channel. And I don't want to discount, you know, I enjoyed my education too. I went to Northern Kentucky University. I enjoyed that college. I enjoyed my professors. I enjoyed the time there. But a lot of what I learned was stuff that in my own personal experience, I already knew. And so some of the conversation, anyway, back to the point, some of the conversation around diversity and inclusion of different groups, different genders, races, ethnicities in the workplace. If you're a hiring manager and you played football in college and you're like, you know what, I know that I did well in this, so I'm going to go look for other people who played football in college just like me. You end up hiring yourself over and over and over again. And then you run into these companies that have, again, the same pedigree in them, and they experience a financial crisis or an existential crisis about what their business is supposed to be. And they find that they don't have enough diverse thinkers at the table because they hired themselves over and over and over again. They hired the same guy from the same school, playing the same sport 100% of the time.
Yeah. Matt, you brought it up about not wanting to take anything away from the education, and, you know, spending 4 years in the military, spending 4 years in a college. You've shown dedication. I mean, one's going to end up costing you, unless you have some sort of scholarship, one's going to cost you a lot more money, obviously, but you've still shown the dedication. And I'm taking nothing away from anyone that decides to go to college and pursue an education. But yeah, your classroom time in the military shows you are in a classroom learning something for a job that you're going to do, and that you're going to go out and have to prove that you can do that job in a no fail environment. A classroom in a college, like you said, you're going to have some electives. We always talk about the underwater basket weaving. You could take that as an elective. Never, ever, ever do that in your life, but you got a college credit for it. Personally, I'd like the individual that's shown they can put the classroom time in that is pertinent to the job and the task they're going to have to do, and then can take that classroom time and go and turn it into wins and success, because that's the individual that, if I have the option between two individuals, one has the college degree and one has a real world experience from the military, and I bring in the military individual, he has that pass that shows if I start teaching him how to do this job, he's shown that he can take this learning and this education and then go turn it into successes and wins. And as a business owner, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for wins. I'm looking for profit. So that's just my personal opinion.
Right.
But so TK, you get done at Xavier University, you watch Villanova stomp all over them year in and year out on the basketball court.
Come on, Nova. Man. What's this all the time with
Let's
this guy?
go Nova.
Ready,
I have to. It's Big East basketball, baby. And
he's like, oh, my connection's getting bad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No, I love Xavier. Good school, good college, great basketball team.
Hey, they beat Nova once. They got him once.
They did. Actually, I mean, they have roughly the same color scheme as Nova. So when I watch Xavier playing anybody else, it's, hey, they look a lot like Nova. I'll root for them. So you get down at Xavier, you find yourself in the financial world, right?
Not necessarily. So,
okay.
Well, the first time I ran into Matt when I got out, I was working for a freight brokerage firm over on the east side of Cincinnati while I was kind of figuring out what was next. My sister, she works at a national wirehouse, and she said, "Why don't you get in business?" And I used to think I used to have a certain perception of people in finance, and she's like, "You love to help people, and you're great at solving problems." So I go to Morgan Stanley, and it's a completely different world. You know, I have a blue collar background, just wearing suits and ties, and what do you do with this work? What do you do with that spoon? It sounds like a really silly issue, but if it's something again you're not used to, and you're trying to close business, and you're just a learning experience. So yeah, I had to pass a couple of tests, and I apologize because I cut you off. I cut you off, man. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I cut you off. So you said after Xavier.
Oh no, it's all good. So you said you go to Morgan Stanley, you start having to pass some exams to get into the financial world.
Yeah.
you had some of that real life learning experience of, hey, these are situations I've never been in before. Let's figure these things out.
And it's
Go ahead.
compared to any field problem, it was probably some of the most difficult time I've dealt with.
Yeah.
When you're trying to learn something new, and it's your livelihood depends on it.
Yeah.
When your livelihood depends on it, it's, hey, here's the deal. When I was in the service, I could step on my Peter and go down to the local entertainment establishment, spend my whole paycheck. I can come back. I'm going to have a uniform. I'm going to have 3 meals a day. I'm going to have everything I need. I can go make bad decisions. I'm still going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Because when you're out here, you make bad decisions or you're not planning correctly, that can get real bad real quick. And it was tough, man. Real tough.
Yeah, there's no parachute left once you're outside of the armed forces. Like you said, if you go out and blow payday, you go out and blow that entire check day one. In 2 weeks, I get another one, and until then, I have a free room that's heated or hopefully air conditioned, and there's a shower and a toilet and a sink, and I have free food over here at this wonderful building, and I can go to the gym, and But yeah, you get out and you get that paycheck and blow it in one day. Guess what? Your bills are still coming. You still need gas for your vehicle. You're going to need food, and all those things cost money. So
let's talk about let's back up about the winning $2.5 million while you're serving in the military. Tim Koester, what would you have done as a 19-year-old with $2.5 million? What should we have done with that money?
At 19, let's talk about it at 19.
At 19.
So there's two separate questions. What would 19-year-old Tim Koester have done?
Yeah, I'd like to hear what 19-year-old Tim Koester would do, and then I'd like to hear.
Do I jump into DeLorean right now with my current brain, or is it old school Tim who would go blow it on just garbage and nothing?
I want 19-year-old Tim's answer to, hey, 19-year-old Tim Koester, here's your check for $2.5 million.
Give us both. Give us the first.
Yeah, I want to hear what 19-year-old Tim does, and then today's Tim does,
and then today's no older than 25-year-old Tim Koester.
I would have had a handful of cars.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I don't know how many girls would have lived in the house I would have bought, but I probably would have bought it down in, somewhere real nice, like overlooking the Ohio River, because that is nice. But I probably would have blown it on probably an island, and
nice.
Probably ran into some interest issues. I probably would have been able to cash flow it for 3 months, and I'd have been a killer 90 days though, man. It would have been a lot of fun. I promise you that. But the current Tim Koester, what he would do as a certified financial planner, one of the things that we're required to do is we need to take inventory of a client's assets and liabilities. And clients that have a plan in place, they have a higher probability and propensity for success moving forward. And one thing, how I equate this to individuals that have military experience, such as yourself, how many times did you guys go outside the wire and there wasn't an op order constructed? If you ever went on a mission, how many times was an op order not pitched to you and your men?
Never.
Yeah, never. If you're going outside the wire, you have some sort of mission. You have some sort of, this is our plan. This is what we need to execute.
You got situation, mission, execution.
Yep.
Service support, command and signal. You have all these different bullet points. The commander's intent. What do we need to accomplish with this?
Mm-hmm.
If 25-year-old Tim Koester got $2.5 million, having a plan in place is the most impactful and important decision I could have made. Finding out where I want to go and how I'm going to get there, it's extremely important. Once you have these ideas memorialized, it's the process of writing them down and looking at them, implementing them. There's so many people that they're not able to live their best lives because they have not schematically drawn this out. I'd love to go to Hawaii. I'd love to go to so on and so forth. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Client, have you sat down and how much would that cost? I've done that before. Okay. Let's figure that out. How much would that cost? How would we get there? One begets the other, and it's a complex dynamic system. Continues to build as you go forward. But if you just put it in your checking account and say, "We'll just see what happens," it might not be the best way to put it.
Tim, that's a great point, and I think that's not just financial. I think that's with life goals as well. where do you want to do? Where you want to go? What do you want to do? Write that big goal down. And guess what? There's about, 15 rungs on that ladder to get to where you want to be. So just start picking them off one at a time. Where with a financial thing like that, I want to go to Hawaii, or I want to buy this house in this area. And those houses cost X amount of dollars. Okay. That's a lot of money. How do we get to that point? So let's talk about, I know Matt and I seem like we kind of had roughly the same plan, and that was we're going to save a couple clams, and then we're going to get out and just kind of wing it, see what happens when we get out of the military. So I think I would guess that's kind of the majority of individuals getting out of the service is we're going to save up a couple $1,000s, and we're going to go home, and we're going to just kind of figure it out. Hope it works out.
All figured out.
Yeah. And you're still young. You're coming out of that service where that parachute is right there to protect you. You feel safe. You're around like-minded people. The real world really isn't real to you yet. And you probably, as that young person, don't come out of there with probably the best plan, if any plan at all. So let's pretend we're sitting in front of a classroom full of these 22, 23-year-old young adults that are getting ready to go out, and they have 5 to 10 grand saved up. And, what would you say financially is probably the best way to go about this?
Hey, gentlemen, 1 second. I lost my headset.
Okay. Matt, were you in that same boat?
25 years old. Okay, what were you saying? Go ahead, Tim.
Tim, I was asking, like, if we're sitting in front of a classroom full of 22, 23 years old.
We're having technical difficulties.
Yeah. So Matt, let's talk about this a little bit. If you could go back and talk to young Matt at that stage and you had your 5-10 grand in your pocket and knowing what you know now, what would you suggest you do?
I would have saved more money. I would have not spent my money on trying to put my social life back together. That's what I did when I got out. I had 5 or 10 grand in the bank. And I came back home and I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the bars and the restaurants and go, live life for a little bit. And that's fine. But it was all for nothing. It was this futile effort to pick up on something that I had missed already, or that I felt that I had missed. So I was trying to, catch up with the Joneses in a way. Mm-hmm. I did not have friends at the time who were in any sort of financial. I didn't have people that I could have, leaned upon for advice. I didn't know anything about investments. In fact, it wasn't until I read, a number of years ago, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that I really started to thinking about money differently. Mm-hmm. Tim mentioned this before, assets and liabilities and taking account of those and understanding what makes you money and what doesn't make you money. I didn't think like that. And largely, I talk about this with my own son. My parents did not. We didn't have that conversation as a kid. We didn't talk about investments and money and things like that. It was just sort of this idea that if I work hard, I'm going to have money. If I go work hard and put in my effort and get a good job, we'll have money, and that'll be okay. I'm a lot more savvy these days about those things. The careers have been good, and also the financial planning piece has been good, but that's largely because, my wife and I had to put a little bit of effort into it. But 23-year-old me didn't know anything about that. Mm-hmm. I had no, a good purchase to me was I'm going to go find this new jacket for $300 at, Nordstrom. And that's a good purchase. Dumbest thing I could have bought, I still, every once in a while, I still make a purchase like that where I'm like, I really did not need whatever this item was. This was stupid. But you live and you learn. And now I do seek information. I seek with the advent of social media, and if we're going to use social media for the positives, it is gaining information, real valuable information on how you can do things. And we were talking about Bitcoin and stuff before we went live, and how some people are like super wealthy off of that, or perceivably super wealthy. It's just understanding what those things are and what they aren't. And if you're not seeking information, you have no idea what they are or what they aren't. Yeah. I don't know. TK, I don't know if you're.
Yeah, I think we got him back.
I'm good. You got me?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So yeah, same question to you. You're in front of this classroom, bunch of 23, 24-year-olds getting ready to get out of the armed forces. They have a couple $1,000s in their pocket. Well, what as a person that deals in finance now, what would you say to these young individuals about that? You know, they're not retiring on $5,000 or $10,000, but they have a little bit saved up. What would you suggest to be their next move?
Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 25 years? Until you start having that discussion, it's really tough to scheme out an optimal plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's well, okay. For instance, Tim, I got $10,000. What kind of stock should I buy? What stock should I buy? Well, do you have $10,000 in credit card debt? Oh, yes, I do. Pay off your credit cards. You're going to make more net in the long term if you pay off your credit card. As far as generating wealth, because that's what the end game is with all. Having a plan in place and ensuring that it's implemented, understanding some of the nuances of wealth. So if I asked you to, what is your most important asset? Tim, what's your most important asset?
My house.
Matt, what's your most important asset?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same thing, but I know that's probably the wrong answer. It shouldn't be your house. It's my face, TK. It's my face.
Tim, your voice. Matt, your face. What you guys do is how you generate a living, how you earn income. Your most important asset, and this is when we're 26 years old and we're barrel-chested freedom fighters, you know, we're invincible, and you know, we got the world, you know, by the short and curlies, and there's nothing that we can't do.
Yeah. I'm
going to live until I'm 85. Nothing's going to happen to me. You have X amount of earning years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be smart during those earning years. And one of the caveats to that is if there's anyone that you care about that you're providing for and something happens to you, ensuring that they're taken care of. So insurance is always part of the discussion. Monitoring your cash flow is always part of the discussion. First thing I would tell these young men and women, if determine what your living expenses are going to be going forward. Make sure you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a checking or savings account. And anything above and beyond that, we could talk about investing. But if you don't have that emergency reserve, you don't have that, you run into something bad. You run into COVID happened in 2020. And you're sitting there and you're trying to pay rent. Maybe there's no legislation that comes through. Well, I mean, it's that could be pretty bad.
Yeah.
And who cares if you risk out in the stock market if you're not able to meet your day-to-day needs?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the conversation we have in my household is when we purchase things, for example, our house, we've talked about maybe moving before.
Mm-hmm.
When we purchase anything, the question that we ask ourselves is, can we afford, if one of us lost our jobs, can we afford our lifestyle? Can we continue to afford our lifestyle? And if the answer is no, then we don't do it. We don't make that investment, or we don't make that purchase, whatever that is. So, you know, I think we saw this in 2008, 2009, and TK, you're going to know a little bit more about this, but like with the different variables that what happened. But it was my understanding that like a lot of people had houses that they just simply could not afford, and when the economy collapsed, a number of things happened. Obviously, the adjustable mortgage rates went up.
Skyrocketed.
Yeah, so somebody's paying $2,000 a month on their huge house, and suddenly they're paying more than that. But then also, if one person lost their jobs, they were what you call house poor. They were just barely able to pay the bills because they were living in a micro mansion or something like that. So
be underwater.
We talk about that a lot. Again, we've made foolish purchases when we had a little bit of excess, but at the same time, we're very well aware and conscious of, can we, if something horrible happened tomorrow, can we support ourselves? Can we continue to pay the bills? And the answer is always yes. And the reason why the answer is not no is because we simply don't put ourselves in that position.
There is, Matt. I keep hearing a couple items. I just want to make sure that I'm pretty clear on this. You can go out and you can go get a shelter have, in a poncho and just live on ramen and live a super Spartan lifestyle and just accumulate pennies and just build all this up. And
Right.
you're not enjoying your life at all. If that jacket that you wanted to get at Nordstrom, taking your girlfriend, your wife out to dinner, there's certain things that you need to do on the day in and day out to make sure that you can make life a little bit more bearable than it is at times.
Right.
And part of that is what allows for that is coming up with understanding what discretionary income versus non-discretionary income. We keep the lights on in the house. We keep food in my stomach. And then everything above and beyond that is entertainment. But if you sit there and you just hoard and you count everything, you're going to hate your life, and everyone probably won't. So make sure you find the balance in your life.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. And that's the thing. It is. And there's ways to do that in a budget, right? I mean, there's ways to do that. There's ways to enjoy life and do things. Everything doesn't have to cost $1 million. You know, everything doesn't have to be, and that is, you know, we could get into a whole other conversation about consumerism and I've got to have the fresh new shoes and the fresh new purse and stuff like that, everybody thinks they have to have. You know, I've talked about this a lot, and, you know, again, I'm not a financial expert, but the reason why people 50 years ago, families had one household, one car to a household, one job, and you were able to support that is, if you think about the average household today, like in my house, it's 2 parents and a kid. We have 4 TVs in our house. We have Wi-Fi. We have all of the streaming services. We have 2 cars in the driveway. We have all these things, all these premium things that people didn't have 50 years ago. We have 2 phones, mobile phone service. You know what I mean? People 50 years ago, when my parents were growing up, they didn't have mobile phones. They didn't have Wi-Fi. They didn't have a cable bill. They didn't have all these things. So if you think about some of these things, people are like, well, I need a new phone. I'm going to go spend $1,000 on the brand new phone. Well, you don't need $1,000 phone, especially if you can't afford it. Stop trying to stretch your limits. You're living beyond your means. And that's when you think about this, and TK, this is probably the conversation you have a lot with people. Buy the $500 phone instead. Take the other $500 you would have spent on the $1,000 phone, invest that, and that $500 in 2 years is now $1,000, or in 10 years it's $1,000. But you do that exponentially with tens of thousands of dollars, and then when you're 55 years old, you're like, well, I can retire now, and I have all this money in the bank because I didn't make frivolous, silly purchases along the way.
I do that daily, finding gaps into present value, future value. This is what this decision right now, this decision is going to equal this down the road. For instance, last week, $143,000 difference over 20 years, which equates to approximately $27,000 today. It's the equivalent of finding about $27,000 on your mattress.
Right.
Which is, it can be pretty impactful when you think about it. But part of it is thinking, well, wait a minute. Do I need this new phone? Do I need to go on vacation, and why am I going on vacation? And if I start getting on a tangent, guys, because I am very passionate about this, and if I do, please stop me. Why am I going on vacation in the first place? Am I going on vacation so I can put it on Facebook and have all my friends say, well, look where we went and look at the pictures of all of us, and then it just turns into, it's like a contest of genuine people. And they're not being true to themselves, and all you're doing is further inhibiting. So you have a picture of the family, right? And you're showing everyone, and we all got matching outfits on, and we're on Hawaii, and we all got lays on, and we're putting this perception that this is what this family looks like. I don't know if it is actually like that or if it isn't, but sometimes decisions can be made that I want to put this image forward of our family. And in reality, you are inhibiting your family's ability to do a lot of things that they could do down the road, because you're making short-sighted decisions. And wait a minute, if my son's friend had these shoes, and if he doesn't have those shoes, then it's like, I'm not providing for my kid. I don't have any children of my own. I don't know what it's like if a kid comes home from school and says this and that, and I don't know at what point I would stop. Hey, they're making fun of my shoes, but I think there's a lot of truth inside of that. And it comes down to a lot of self-image problems. It comes a lot of people aren't comfortable with the skin that they're in. and we constantly try to project an image of people who we're not. And I mean, if you're in Eastern philosophy and you examine it more closely, we essentially project the image that's the inverse of who we are internally, which is
So Tim, I think for most people, when they think of investing, they think they have to have 10, 15, $20,000 to start investing. That's not true, correct? I mean, you can
yeah,
start investing with much less, really, and start
absolutely.
building from there. Um,
Yes.
what are some of, in your opinion, what are some of the best resources out there? Like, is I know there's like robo investors. You can download an app. It'll say, hey, we'll take your spare change from every purchase and drop it into a bucket, or hey, this is a hot stock, or what are some of the best, in your opinion, like low cost investment opportunities for people out there to just get started?
Well, to be honest with you, Tim, I'm not an expert when it comes to low cost providers of financial services.
Okay.
I'm a premium provider
Okay.
of financial planning. If sometimes you get what you pay for, and just because something is cheaper than the alternative, it doesn't mean it's better.
Yeah.
I would say, if as far as resources available, read Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. Start to understand some of your own maybe behavioral finance hangups. Half of what we do as financial advisors and financial planners is it's behavioral finance. You're panicking at the bottom. A lot of clients, they get out. That's the worst time to get out. Or you want to get in at the top, and it's the worst time to get in. But understanding endowment bias. Why do I think these shares of Procter and Gamble are worth more than they are? Just because my dad gave them to me? Just because my grandma gave them to me? I think my collector car is worth X amount because I spend so many hours on it every Sunday, and it's immaculate, and I put so much sweat equity into it. I think it's actually worth more. That's a thought fallacy. That's a thought issue. And once we start recognizing some of our own kind of thought pattern discrepancies, you're able to accelerate maybe the building of wealth, because it seems more, it becomes more apparent. It's like paying off your credit card. If you're paying 15% interest on your credit card and you got a stock that's going to make 12% a year, what do? 12%, that's great.
Yeah, but you're also paying 15, so you're losing 3% the other
You're
way.
also losing on carry. See, that's the game.
Yeah. Awesome.
So should I not invest in Enron and Radio Shack and things like that?
Enron, yeah.
That one sounds good.
That book, that was what, Thinking Fast and Slow? Was that what the one?
Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, by Daniel Kahneman.
Okay.
It's system 1, system 2 thinking. To put a quick example and how this can apply to your everyday life. So you're a caveman, right? You're sitting there, you're in your cave, and you got your buddy, Matt. Me and Matt, we're going to go out hunting. Matt grabs his club, I grab my club, and I got my rocks. Matt walks out, and I see a shadow. The shadow is moving behind him, and then, man, it smushes him. Holy shit, Lord. I saw a shadow, and then Matt died. So I go back in my cave. So I come back out, ready to go back out in my hunting party, and I see a shadow. I see that same shadow, but it's a bird. It's a bird flying overhead. But I recognize this shadow as some kind of trigger point that was not. We assume more as humans on the back end. We assume we know how everything is going to end. But unfortunately, we don't. How life is.
Right.
I wanted to bring the book back up in case somebody could catch it the first time.
Yep.
So we're almost at an hour now. Tim, sorry we had the technical difficulties there in the middle, but great talking to you, sir. Appreciate you, and once again, thank you for your service and everything you've done. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we get out of here?
In the event that if I'm willing to extend my time and my services on a complimentary basis to those that have served this country, the event that you two know anyone who does need help, I'm always here for them. And that goes to your listeners, and that goes to anyone else who.
And we can find you on LinkedIn. That's right. I see a bunch of your content on LinkedIn all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So can people reach out to you there?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Tim, it's Tim Koester, Koester, just for anybody listening. Tim Koester, Koester on LinkedIn.
So, Tim, thank you very much for joining us. Matt, you got anything before we get out of here, sir?
Nothing here. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their week, and we'll see you next time.
Everyone be safe. Thanks again, fellas. Take care.
Absolutely. Hey, don't be storming any public buildings, any government buildings. Stay out of the spotlight. Be safe. Take care of each other.
Can I say something to end? Can I say something to end on that thought? Everyone be good, and just because things don't turn out a certain way, we have to hold ourselves differently, and we hold ourselves up to a different standard than the rest of civilians do. Mm-hmm. So just because things don't go our way, it doesn't mean we quit being good Americans.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Don't throw a fit because your blue team lost or your red team lost. It's okay.
It's too bad. You know what I mean? It's okay. Stand for the flag and just be a good person and watch out for everyone. Yep. Take care of someone.
Yep. Absolutely. Take care of each other. Wear your mask. Wash your damn hands, everybody. Stay safe, stay clean. You can check us out on all the social media sites. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a rating and review. The ratings and reviews help us get to more ears and more eyes. We appreciate you guys so very much for checking us out. And until next time, we'll see you right back here on Beyond the Wire podcast.